Hello YouTube, this is Matt Pullen. I'm feeling somewhat better, so I'm going to try to make a chess video today. So, this is a position from my last round game at the Third Coast Challenge, which is the most recent tournament I played in. And this is against Sam Ford, who's 1941 and I was 1980 at the time of this game. So I had the black pieces, and black is up some material, and I just played b4 to try to wrench open the position so I can create some exchanges. Now, I'm not going to go over this whole game. I tried, but there's no way I can get it under 11 minutes, especially with this new Chess-Base 9 software that lets me draw colored squares and arrows and stuff. There's just so much for me to point out in the game, and having those colored arrows just makes it so much easier. I can't get a whole game under 11 minutes anymore. So I'm just going to try and do part of games from now on. So this is the part of the game where I'm trying to crack open the position, create some trades so I can take advantage of my material plus. So in the game, he did not do this, but if he takes this pawn with the rook, then I exchange rooks on b4, and I play queen c4 check. The king has one move over to e3, and the white king has lost control over c2. So now there's only one defender on c2, the knight, on e1. And ordinarily, you would not trade a queen for two pieces, but this is something that I like to call the principle of attrition in chess. If you're up a lot of material, then it's okay to lose a trade in order to produce a simpler position where you have a straightforward win. Don't just look at the values of the pieces that are coming off as a direct result of the trade. Look at the values of the pieces that will be left on the board after the trade is done. Because ultimately, the game of chess is won by pieces that are on the board, not by off the board. So, queen takes, in my opinion, is a perfectly acceptable way to play to win the game. Knight takes, rook takes, and we've reached a position, I stop my analysis here, of black having a rook against a bishop. He's an exchange up, and this is a bad bishop. The bishop is limited by all of white's pawns, and there's no way it can attack any of black's pawns. Also, there are so many pawns on the board that the bishop is not going to be able to defend everything on both sides of the board. The rook is going to be very powerful. So, if this were just like, white and black each have two pawns, then the bad bishop holds some drawing chances because the bishop can control, both of the pawns. But here, this is just hopeless. But I'm going to talk about the winning technique for black. Just to get a little basic, I'm going to talk about how black would win this position, and maybe you can pause the game and try and think your way through how you would play this for black. What is your plan in order to win the position? Would you try to penetrate with your rook and go after the kingside pawns, or would you bring the black king to the queen side and try to penetrate through the light squares over there? So I'm going to show you what the correct technique is in a position like this. And the correct technique is that black wants to bring his king up to the b5 square, and he wants to sacrifice for this pawn on b4, sacrifice the exchange, and he'll end up with an outside passed pawn. And while white is stopping this outside passed pawn, the black king can then come in and start to eat white's pawns. So we'll see how that works. Let's say, alright, so white is going to play a move like this, which takes some squares away from the black rook. Alright, see, black rook can't go there, can't go there, can't go there. So the rook's going to have to move, and I believe the correct plan is to bring the rook to c4. Now, let's say the white king does nothing, just shuffles back and forth and such. Well, this is how white is going to win. how black is going to win if white does nothing. So here, I could, you could penetrate around with the king and get a better king position, but it's not really necessary here. Black can just take. And if white does not give up the bishop, then this pawn is just going to march to the end and it's a girl. So bishop takes, rook, and king takes, and now this white king has to try and stop this pawn. So comes around, and then the pawn just keeps pushing and keeps pushing, and now black abandons the pawn and plays, well, actually, to be more precise, black can play this move to force the white king to go back, and then play king to c3, and this abandons the pawn. So there's no choice but for the king to go and try and get this pawn, and then munch, king takes, and now there's no way to stop this pawn from getting to the end, because the black king prevents white's king from getting to the queening square. So yeah, whenever you see a situation like this, where one side is controlling all these squares in the pawn's path leading up to the queening square, this is an automatic win for black. He's just gonna push, get a queen. So that is why the passive defense fails, because black is going to sacrifice the exchange to get the outside passed pawn on the A file, which creates a winning advantage. So let's say before all this happened, white decides to wrong person. So say white wants to get his king over to the queen side, so he builds a bridge like this. He puts this bishop on c3 so that the white king can come over here. So let's follow through with that plan. And now let's say the black king plays here. And now this is sort of like a zugzwang, because this bishop is guarding both of the white pawns. Either one of these pawns, if the bishop were not guarding it, the rook could take. For instance, if the bishop moved this way, then rook takes pawn for check. And if the bishop moved this way, then this pawn is hanging. So the bishop can't move. So it's it's got to be a king or pawn move, right? If the king moves here, then it doesn't really help, because black can gain king position by moving his king to a4, and taking squares away that the white king might want to use. So it's got to be a pawn move here. So let's say f4. New overwrite. So in this position, there are multiple ways for black to win, but I think the easiest is this immediate exchange sacrifice, and this creates an even pawn ending. It's the ultimate attrition. You're giving up any material advantage. But after king takes the rook, this black king comes here, and the white king, it's stuck. There are no moves that it has that that still guard this pawn on b4. This thread between the king and pawn is about to be snapped. So there's no breakthrough on the king side, because any sort of a pawn move will be met by pawn takes pawn, and this pawn can't move because the pawn on f7 covers that. So there's nothing for white on the king side with the pawn break. So he's going to have to play some king move, and then king takes pawn, and go to the end of the board, collect $200. So that is how you win this particular exchange up ending against the bad bishop. I hope you learned something from this demonstration, and until I figure out how to make a whole game analysis under 11 minutes, talk to you next time.